Hello, I'm Tracy Nicholas, and welcome to Folkloring. I am a passionate folklore practitioner, and to me, folkloring is more than just a podcast. It's my commitment to help you connect with your roots and awaken the wisdom within you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Folkloring. And today we are going to talk about all things Elder Futhark runes. And I'm here today with Paul and Diane Ennis, who run the nonprofit Rune Queen Elder Futhark Institution, and also have another corporation called Rune Queen Portents and Design. And they are here today to talk a little bit about runes and what their mission is for people with runes. So, welcome, you guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Tracy.
Now, before we get into all things runes, how have you guys been folkloring lately?
Well, I put in my garden not too
Nice.
long ago.
Nice.
And when I do that, I like to take rune symbols and press them into the soil when I plant my new plants.
Okay.
And then they get covered up with mulch and everything, but they're there doing their work. So that's something that I do just to sort of empower the soil and give the plants a little boost.
That's a very cool idea. I just got my first cucumber today.
Ah,
Ah,
nice.
for me, if we look at the definition of folkloring as doing something with ancient wisdom here today, which I think is kind of part of your definition, right? It's
Yeah.
how you engage with it.
Yes.
I engage every day. I post to social media our various forms of content. They're all specific to whether it's the weekly Rune Notes report or the Rune of the Day social media post. And it's a daily activity, and it's just wonderful. I get to take that ancient wisdom and plug it into the here and now and offer suggestions and give guidance based on what Diane has learned and what we're projecting at this point with the businesses.
hmm That's great. So, why don't we talk a little bit about who you guys are, what the businesses are, what your path has been to get here, to give people a little bit of context around understanding what it is that you do.
Well, I grew up in an artistic family, so I came at it from the side of the arts. And I also have Scandinavian ancestry. So I was always aware of kind of in a vague sense of what runes were.
hmm
But as a child, there was really nothing available written in English to help teach me about it.
Right, right.
So sometime in the 1980s, there was a resurgence of interest in the runes, and books started to be available, and I just grabbed onto them, and I learned everything I could. And I continue to do that even today. But like I said, I came at it from an artistic standpoint. So I took the runes and their meaning and tried turning them into art.
Okay.
And I also studied herbalism and lots of other esoteric subjects, and that all sort of blended together to form what eventually turned into our business. But it started out as a design business. I
Oh,
was taking runes, using them as designs on greeting cards and other products, and mixing all those other meanings into the images I was creating.
hmm
So it was kind of a natural evolution into later on teaching about the runes.
hmm
And content creation.
Yeah.
If I were to summarize me, I'm a guy who's got a pretty diverse background in business and market development and advertising and media. I was a radio disc jockey. I had a children's radio program I produced for a while, reading books to kids on the radio.
hmm
And so when this all began for each of us, we came about it in different directions. But as I thought about it overnight after we reviewed your questions to prepare, I realized we're content creators. That's really what we are. We want to use our skills. Diane's a photographer, a graphic artist. I'm an audio guy and a narrative and a copywriter. And we're still learning every day how to do what we're doing.
That never stops.
It
Yeah.
never stops.
Yeah.
The runes are over my shoulder. And she grew up with them. I did not. And I was aware of them, but my goodness, have I gotten that much more aware and experienced what it is that one can do when you empower objects. It literally comes down to that for us.
hmm
The runes are used as talismans They have ancient history where they were worn as medallions, or they were on warrior shields, or on the houses, or on a side of a boat. They've got several thousand years of history that's undeniable. And you can argue about whose alphabet to use or not to use. For us, the one thing that's been wonderful is to realize these symbols have been around for 2,000 plus years.
Hmm.
For some reason, human beings gravitate towards these shapes. If you're in Africa, you probably don't know anything about runes. If you're in Russia or China, you probably don't know anything about runes, but you have pictographic alphabets in China, which
Right.
are very similar to how runes are constructed.
Yeah, I think that we do like to give meaning and consequently power to symbols. The experience that I have with runes is fairly limited, but every once in a while in a group that I'm in, we pull some runes. And there's always, when the person who knows more than I do explains, they talk about the symbolism, like this represents a horse, and what's those, how we tie those pictures to different objects that have meaning in our life. I think that's really fascinating. So let's talk now. You said specifically you focus on the elder Futhark, right?
Yes.
Can you tell people a little bit about that and sort of the difference and what it is about that particular one that you focus on and why?
Well, the Elder Futhark runes are an ancient form of writing, which probably, like Paul said, probably evolved from pictographs.
Right.
But somehow, at least 2,000 years ago, people agreed on these forms
Hmm.
to have specific meanings.
Okay.
And they represented the language of the time, but it was more than just a form of writing.
Hmm.
Each of the characters had a symbolism behind it.
Right.
And so they were they had meanings that were very basic and elemental, like water or
Hmm.
fire or cattle or breath, the sun, family, but they became something larger than that and became archetypes that hold meanings such as life and creation and consequences and community. And so these runes, we don't really know where their origin is,
Hmm.
but however they were created, they've survived this long and complicated stretch of human history, and they're
Hmm.
still in use today.
Sure.
That tells me that they're powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they are used as a form of writing still, and that's perfectly valid.
Hmm.
They're used as tools for divination and
Sure.
fortune telling. We don't do that. We can. It's also a valid use.
Hmm.
They can be used as talismans for focusing power. But the
Right.
main thing that we focus on is that they're depositories
Hmm.
for ancient wisdom that informs the human experience. It was valid 2,000 years ago, and it's valid today too.
Right. Right.
Difference between Elder Futhark and Younger Futhark.
The Elder Futhark is the oldest form of runes. Around the 8th century, it started to fall out of use, and there was a younger Futhark and an Anglo-Saxon Futhark that became more used to
Hmm.
reflect the language changes of the time and the fact that it was spreading throughout Northern Europe into other areas where different languages were spoken. So, to reflect the language of the time, the rune set changed. But the Elder Futhark still survived in pockets around the world, which is probably why we still have it today.
Right. So the younger Futhark is really just sort of an evolution of the elder Futhark and changes based on different people finding that and changes with language. Is that really sort of the...
That's a theory,
Oh,
it's all theoretical.
sure.
Um, because it does reflect changes in the language. The younger Futhark is a shorter set. I believe
Oh,
it's 16 or 18 characters.
uh-huh.
The Anglo-Saxon Futhark also is a shorter set, which is why I like the Elder Futhark. It's bigger, it's
Yeah.
fuller.
Yeah. And now this question just off the top of my head, and you may not know the answer to this. Are there other more modern versions of runes that people have created that we know are maybe sort of reminiscent of the older ones, but we know the origins of them? Are there other sets that are out there?
Well, I won't pretend to be an expert, but yes, there are. there's gaming culture has adopted runes and symbols that they call runes, but a
Yeah.
lot of them don't look anything like the Scandinavian runes.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
But they have the same sort of cachet. They have that power behind each one, but they're used in gaming.
Right, right.
And yet they create their own mythology around them. I believe there's other cultures, the Lord of the Rings people have their own set of runes, that elf runes,
They're in cryptocurrency.
and
There's a
they're in
lot of crypto
cryptocurrency. Yeah.
coins that are named after runes.
Interesting.
And when you asked that, Tracy, it made me think, and this is honestly what we're doing is revising in some ways the interpretations and the application of those interpretations
Mhm.
to almost translate them into how to relate to runes in the modern world with technology and cell phones and the internet and social media channels, all of that. So I would say I think we're actively one of the people or one of the groups of people, I guess, working with the runes in our own way,
I
Well,
think we're part of the evolution of the use of runes because they are ancient symbols, but cell phones didn't exist back then, and
right,
cars didn't exist back then, and yet we can relate them to things that are commonplace in modern life that didn't people hadn't even thought of back then,
right, right.
just
Yeah.
because we're still human.
Sure. And I think that that's really cool because much like any other folklore, it's, a living thing, right? It,
Yes.
yeah,
it's an oral tradition. It depends on, who's doing the telling that time or what the
absolutely.
culture is. People move from one area and they bring their folklore with them. And so it is always growing and changing and adapting, just like the runes apparently are. And, I think about divination in general and you go back to some of the like Mother Shipton and there's Nostradamus, right? And there are, certain things that are very cryptic that they would say, and people are like, oh, voices heard around the world. That's about telephones. And then it was like, oh, voices heard around the world. That's about, computers. And so people adapt our lore to what our circumstance is, what our technology is. Like we're so connected now, but things that were more important several hundred years ago were about are we going to like live through the winter with our crops? And
Exactly.
and so we do tell different stories now. So it's important to not just be stuck in the past and say, yes, let's keep looking at runes and how they serve us in our current life.
Absolutely. And it's exactly in line, which is what was so exciting to meet you with what you're doing. You're talking about a multitude of traditions or languages or systems, or I don't know that much about the folkloring genre. Obviously, we fit in it,
Yeah.
but I get the drift of it, which is to me, what I experience in modern day these days over the last 20 or 30 years, obviously, is the incredible change in technology, which has really impacted our spirits and our physical bodies
Sure.
in many times quite negative ways. And
Absolutely.
so, reaching for ancient traditions, reaching for more natural things, reaching towards things that nourish us is not commonly done. I don't know how to say it. We're not stupid peoples, but we sort of are. We're sort of fascinated with the latest thing, not realizing that watching CNN or cable news 24 hours a day is really stressful on your body.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
now there are scientific studies being done that show the cortisol levels and show the adrenaline and show how negative that is. And it's like, turn off your TV. But it's hard
Yeah.
to shut that pipeline down
Yeah.
for many of us.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a while back, and this was a year plus ago, the power went out in my entire neighborhood. And I all of a sudden, like, it felt like there was a little less stress on my heart. And I felt a little
Ah,
like clearer in my thinking because
yes.
there was not only was, the power out, but the internet was out. And so, and everybody's got Wi-Fi. I've got it in my house. And so, but I just remember for that hour or two that it was out like this is how I'm supposed to feel all the time.
Right.
And that was
Well, one of those side effects of the pandemic we all just lived through
Yes.
was Good Lord, I'm a patient advocate as well, and I was taking clients to San Francisco to UCSF, driving in the car, coming through the same neighborhoods on the Embarcadero, heading over to the UCSF campus. There was nobody on the streets. It was the weirdest thing to be in a major metropolitan area. I had seen it on the news, but when I experienced it driving through the city,
It felt post-apocalyptic.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was just wild. There's an anecdote sometimes I've used and I've heard other people use it related to this thing, and that is that fluorescent lights
Hmm.
actually flash on and off 60 times a second. You know, the cycle of electricity is 60 times a second, and the fluorescent gas is igniting and burning out. And so when you have fluorescent lights on, you don't realize it. It's kind of a nice light. It doesn't have shadow, blah, blah, blah. But when you turn a fluorescent light off in a room, you go,
Ah,
and
I can't even go down the freezer aisle in the grocery store because having it coming down from above and from both sides, it starts to give me a headache. I just feel
yeah,
uncomfortable and my whole body tenses up. I hate it.
yep,
So,
yep.
I agree.
okay, well, let's talk a little bit then about how you guys are bringing runes into modern day and how you're helping people discover them for themselves.
Well, we're on social media on most of the channels out there, most of the platforms, and I write a weekly deep dive into one rune,
We
uh,
now call it a mini
a mini
masterclass.
masterclass.
Okay.
So anyone can follow that. We're on probably Substack is probably the best place to find us to see the body of work that's out there. But then Paul also takes my writing and he posts a daily, what do you call it? A daily
Rune of the day,
a
Rune
rune a
Green's Rune
day.
of the day.
Mhm.
And so there's always a flow of information available on on what is it, Facebook and Instagram and
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn,
Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, all of them.
all over the place.
And when we began, we told you this the other day, but for those in your audience, it began literally us taking a walk around in the country here in July of 2022 and being in a lot of pain, being
Mhm.
in a lot of stress, realizing all the things going on in our culture and in the world and the shift in energetics, however you want to describe it, a lot of negativity, a lot of feelings of powerlessness. And we literally said to ourselves, what can we do? Is there anything we can do?
Mhm.
We are giving people. We are educators, we are teachers, we are artists, but we care and we like to share and give things. And that's literally where we began to focus on let's do something with the runes. Again, I knew hardly anything about them. Diane had literally created a line of cards on one of her internet stores with
Uh-huh.
all the runes on them. And I went, "Oh, you've got that done?" She said, "Yeah, I've had it done for a year or more." And I went, "Oh, well, I mean, maybe we can start." Honestly, it began in that simple of a way for us. If
Mhm.
you would have asked me 3 years ago what I thought would have happened between then and now, I would have gone, I don't think I want to go down this road. It's going to be a heck of a lot of work. But we sort of fell into it, which is what we are prone to do. And so I share that to just say, in perspective, that's how simple it began. And so we haven't done focus groups on the best way to approach social media. We
Right.
haven't done focus groups on what do people really want on social media. We're on social media. And in the worst of ways, with the hate and the divisiveness and the angry comments, there is also a mixture of kindness, of
Mhm.
positivity. There are people, we're not the only ones, obviously, attempting to use that media. And why? Because it reaches so doggone many people.
Right.
And yet, the nature of the beast means that if you have a Facebook channel and a group of friends that you're on there with, and you have only 10 friends, well, your stream each day isn't real busy, right? You only have 10 friends. If you have several hundred, to place a post onto someone's into the Facebook realm or any other social media channel, it's gone in a second, right?
Right.
So my advertising background was all about repeat and frequency, right? You run a commercial for somebody 3 or 4 times a day so it sinks into somebody. Well, you try and do that on social media, and we have consultants tell us we should be posting 10 times a day, and we just can't go there.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
But at
Yeah.
least once a day and consistently, we know that it's in the flow, if you will, of what's
Right.
out there.
Right.
So we take Diane's writings, I condense them down to not just a meme, but a visual meme using her photographs of the natural world, the drawings she's made of runes, her interpretations of runes in an Art Nouveau style. I mean, this is a really talented and powerful young woman I'm sitting next to here. I scored a few points, I hope there. And so we also can overwhelm people with too much content. And so
Right.
we've tried to narrow it down. We've had friends of us who say to us who are very involved in social media, oh, people don't read. Nobody's going to read your stuff. And we looked at each other and went, well, he's right, but I can't edit it down any more than I do.
Mhm.
The
You
foundation,
you can't offer wisdom in an image.
Right. Right.
You get a little bit of the message across,
Right.
but if people want to learn, they're going to have to read or they're going to have to listen. We haven't gotten to the point where we are, I mean, this is our first step into the podcast world.
Right. Right.
So we may do more audio work like this, but we're dipping our toes at this moment.
But that's great. I mean, a bunch of people who have not heard of you will now know, and then the right people will read, right? The right people,
Yes.
and really, what the nonprofit that you have is for is about education, right?
absolutely, it's an educational public charity. And you just led into something I was just getting ready to say, and I'll say it right now.
All right.
This is for those people seeking knowledge and empowerment from the Elder Futhark runes. It's a tenet. We've been on social media and been attacked by people and been accused of not honoring the ancients and not on, because we're bringing them into modern times. And it's someone yelling at us on social media through their iPhone that we aren't
Right.
antique enough or that we aren't old enough or we aren't,
Yeah.
so there's a little bit of irony there. But we finally realized, again, from a business standpoint, that's one of the talking points we just need to be clear on with ourselves. It isn't for everybody. And
Right.
everything that we do, we make very clear. Take it at what it's worth and what it inspires in you. If you don't like it, if you don't like the colors, if that bind rune doesn't make sense to you that Diane has designed, design your own.
Right.
Sketch it in the dirt, draw
Right.
it on a piece of paper. It's so simple to do. Again, we forget to do those things. So you said it, and I couldn't resist. That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's set
And
up for people seeking knowledge.
yeah, exactly. And, I am so over, like, I can't roll my eyes hard enough with magical gatekeeping, where, it's like, here's the right way to do it. It's like,
Mhm.
no, because when I think about magic and even folklore, it's like, hey, it's all made up. Like, just because
Yeah.
somebody made it up a really long time ago doesn't mean it's more valid. It's like, sure, there are themes that we have, there are universal truths that we have, but to say, like, you're doing it wrong kind of misses the point of divination, of magic, of folklore, because it's like, no, no, you're not. Now, you can say things that are patently untrue, say in like herbalism, right? And someone can get very
Right.
sick. And so
Right.
there are, there are facts, but the people who think that they have the truth is different than fact. And
Yes.
so to say what I think is true is a fact, like right there, I'm like, okay, now I'm done listening because it's
Yeah,
like,
no, it's not going to go anywhere.
right,
And there are different levels of truth as well. There are universal truths, there are social truths, there are personal truths.
yep,
What I believe is my truth. It may not be anyone else's.
right, right,
And when you're talking about magic and folklore, it's very personal. It comes down to the individual to believe what you're going to believe, and that gives it power.
right. Well, and we've talked about this in our previous conversation that a lot of the power in divination, no matter what kind you're doing, is in the interpretation.
Yes.
And people have heard me say before, I'm sure, that I always think of divination as sort of a back door into your subconscious. But it has to do, and it's not just your personal interpretation, it is the interpretation of where you are in this moment. What's going on in your life? What activities,
Synchronicity, synchronicity.
and I'm going to be a different person tomorrow than I am today, and you go back to what's his name, Ruiz's four agreements, right? Some days you might be, I don't know, hungover, or some days you might have the flu, or whatever it is, and your best is not the best that it would be on a different day. And I think that that is the joy of doing divination, because it's helping you figure out what you think, what you believe, and what you've like hidden from yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Part of my past that I didn't mention before is that I was a tarot card reader for quite a long time. And the tarot cards led me into using the runes because I combined those two. And oh boy, what a combination. I would do a tarot card reading and then I would pull a rune. And if the rune didn't agree with the cards, I'd throw the whole thing out because I know I was having an off day.
Yeah, yeah.
But I saw tarot cards, runes, I Ching, all as tools to tap into the subconscious. And there is a belief that your subconscious is wired into a network of everybody else's subconscious.
Sure.
So, you're tapping into the worldwide net before the worldwide net ever existed.
Right, right. And I think that there is, starting to be scientific evidence for that, for
Yeah.
the fact that we are connected on a real, very real, energetic and physical level.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that has to do with it too. You were talking earlier about, when you first started walking and talking, like the atmosphere and how difficult it was for people. Like that plays in to any kind of divination, any kind of tapping into ancient wisdom, because you feel those effects. You felt the effects when you were driving around and it was, post-apocalyptic, right?
Hmm.
it's
Mhm.
it's it's different based on so many factors. And that's why I think, if you're going to have a practice like this, doing it all the time not only helps you understand more and get better, but it helps you sort of understand the ebbs and flows of your own life and your own self.
Yeah. I thought of something earlier. I was waiting to see if it would come back. Diane has shared with me, and you might be aware, there was a practice reported. Again, nobody was there at the time to tell us that happened, but they used to activate or empower rune etchings and carvings with blood. They
Hmm.
would
Yeah.
either put human blood in it. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, the runes were considered entities.
Okay.
And so when you were carving a rune, you gave it life by giving it some of your blood.
Hmm.
And what I
And
wanted to say is when I post a daily post, I do a little bit of formatting on the channels where I can, because I'm a graphic artist guy and I like to make something readable. So I'll put bold headlines in or I'll put italics in, just so it's fun when you read it to pick up emphasis. So I realized a couple of weeks ago, in fact, every time I bold Fehu in a report, I am activating it. That's the
Hmm.
conscious energy I put into it. I'm not making it jump off the page any more than it calls attention to it. But I realized in a modern sense, I'm not bleeding, obviously, but I am touching that with my little mouse pointer. I'm double clicking it and it turns black. That is the simplest form of activation. It escaped me. I was doing it because I wanted it to look good, but based on our previous
yeah, and
conversations,
he's
I went,
injecting it with life.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm doing that. So again, it's simple stuff that we do, all of us do.
Right.
And for us, it's part of the daily practice. I mean, I get up in the mornings and I have a little string of lights I turn on in the office. It's usually 6 or 7 in the morning. I have my hot drink that I sit down with. I turn on some cool background music and I start posting. I get in a zone
Yeah.
and it's very repetitive. We are not able to automate things because many channels are different one from the other. So I've got it down now to know what the formats are. And I go through my little checklist. Again, that's just me being who I am, but it's a ritual. It's a wonderful thing to do, cycling out.
And I was going to say, like, when you say getting in the zone, like, that's such a modern kind of thought for trancing out, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, it's a ritual. You go into trance, you do the ritual, and you're giving power to the words. And so you're just getting up in the morning and working a little magic.
Yeah. Let me give a shout out, in fact, if I can, to the San Francisco young women's chorus or San Francisco girls chorus. I can't remember their official name. We saw them here at a recent concert. It blew our mind. I came home and looked them up, and these are angelic
Mm.
young women in San Francisco
Their
who have
voices
been
are
brought
just
together.
amazing.
And I have it set up in Amazon, click it on, and I'm just gone, and I've listened to it 500 times over. I just put it on shuffle and let it go because it fills the room. I
Yeah.
got angels sitting all around me, not in the Christian sense, but angels clearly entities. And it's these beautiful young girls. I don't even know how. I've been a singer, I've been a media guy. I don't know how the guy even conceptualizes, the director, what they want to do with this chorus, but the end result on CD is overwhelmingly beautiful.
That's really interesting. I never thought about what kind of music that I play when I'm in similar, like if I'm writing, because I, get in the zone when I'm writing, or when I'm, researching. And I think about that. And so you use like the same music a lot. And for me, it's like, and it'll be a very strong visceral kind of reaction. I either listen to Spanish guitar,
Mm-hmm.
Native American flute,
Mm-hmm.
or like shamanic drumming.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't listen to anything with lyrics because it just
Right.
like, yeah,
Right.
It's distracting. Yeah.
yeah. And I know whatever day I'm like, oh, it's going to be, Native American flute right now. And I don't know why I know, it's just a thing. And I'm like, this is what it is today. So
Believe me, I have several genres too. I just thought I would throw out that quote for people to give a little pump to these guys in San
yeah,
Francisco.
yeah.
And
And
the difference between us,
for
he
me,
walks in the room, I have to turn it off.
I want utter silence
You can't
Mhm.
handle.
because we live out in the country. I want to hear the birds. I want to hear the wind and the leaves.
Yeah,
So that's my connection to nature, but
yeah.
I don't want anything else because for me, even non-lyrical music is distracting. I
Mhm.
really need to focus.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, like, I live in a part of the country where 9 months out of the year I have to have the windows closed.
Hmm.
Ah,
But
I used to live there.
the good old Midwest.
Well, I was in the Northeast, so
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
Great Lakes.
yeah. And my neighbors think I'm very weird that I have my like right now I have my windows open, and they're just like, "What? Don't you want the air conditioning?" And I'm like, "No, I really
No.
don't. I don't. I want to connect." But anyway, okay, so tell me this. Now, we know that the organization is about education, about teaching people how to empower themselves with runes. Am I hearing that correctly?
Right.
Absolutely. It's pretty simple. Educate, inspire, empower. We
Hmm.
teach about the runes. Most of the writings are uplifting. We have a lot of behavioral psychology, a lot of motivational psychology. It's not Pollyanna by any means, but it is uplifting and positive and also truthful. I just edited a post this morning on Hagalaz. Hagalaz you don't mess with. That's destructive energy, and she coaches that in her writings. It's like if you really need to get something done, blah 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 blah, but don't keep your intentions pure if you're using Hagalaz energy, because if not, you'll blow somebody
Yeah,
away.
there are no bad runes. I know that there are people when they pull a rune and they get Isa or they get Nothiz or Hagalaz, they go, "Oh no." No, they're all good runes. They're all teaching us something.
Right.
And listening to that idea that chaos is coming. It's
Hmm.
coming for a reason.
Yeah.
And thank goodness you're being warned. Now you can prepare.
Well, when a storm comes, right? And you say,
Right.
oh, it's a destructive storm. Well, that storm is bringing down dead branches. That
Yes.
Absolutely.
storm is cleaning out things that need to be removed. And so, you have to just say, okay, this might be like we're in for a bumpy night, but you have to see like what's going to come out of it. What is the positive? And even we were talking about tarot earlier, like when people get the death card.
Right.
Okay, no, it's not a bad card. Even the tower, it's sort of like people are like, oh, it's like, no, no. What is it trying to tell you in your circumstance?
Right. It's testing systems. It's
Mhm.
testing what exists
Yes,
and clearing out what doesn't work.
right, exactly. And like I think about like even when, say, you work out, you
Mhm.
are in a minor way damaging your muscles, right?
You're tearing the muscle fibers. Yep.
But that's what makes you stronger.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
micro tears, and then the muscles rebuild, and you get bigger muscles.
right.
So those kinds of things for me are the inspire part of it.
Mhm.
We educate with the facts and the knowledge and the history for whatever it's worth. The writings hopefully inspire someone, and then they get motivated and they empower themselves by the tools that we also suggest and the things that are said. So it's an educational public charity founded on those three principles. 501(c)(3 on our website. I have a link where you can go if you want to help make a contribution to the cause. We accept tax deductible contributions. We formed it a year and a half or so ago. We haven't even had time to write any grants, but it's also already brought us great benefits. Google, Microsoft, all kinds of major corps offer all kinds of perks to nonprofits. So it's been very helpful to us in that way.
Mhm.
And we will write grants and we will utilize it. We've set up a vessel, if you will. We want to make this a business. We're pretty clear. We're not self-sacrifice completely. We knew what it was going to take, and like I said, if I had realized what it was going to take for these last 3 years, I don't know if I would have done it.
But we're trying to get it to support itself.
Yeah, we wanted to support ourselves and support us. So there's a practical side to it.
I've been on a lot of nonprofit boards, and there's this sort of idea of like noble sacrifice. And I think that's terrible because like people shouldn't be starving in order to satisfy a vision and a mission. And people should be paid a decent salary. You shouldn't have to go without to do something good in the world. And obviously, there are massive nonprofits where they make a lot of money. And it's not about not making money. What it's about is saying, if you are working for the good of society, we're not going to charge you taxes on the money that you make. But it
Correct.
doesn't
Right.
say don't make money. And I think that people should be well compensated. And I think people should be able to live just as well as someone who's like goes out and gets a corporate job.
Hmm.
Sure. And the cardinal rule of caring for others is care for yourself first.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because if you don't do that, you can't do anything else.
Hmm. So you talked about sort of the different tools and stuff. And the question I was going to ask is, I get excited about your program and I jump in and like, what does my day look like? How does my life look different? But I do want to talk a little bit about those tools, and then maybe I don't have to ask that question because people will understand. Now, you have something called Nina that I'd like to
Hmm.
talk about. And I see on my list of questions that I misspelled Nina, which is Nena, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's Diane's maternal grandmother's name.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for the misspelling.
That's all right.
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about Nina and how that works.
Nina is your AI rune wisdom guide. We began a relationship, and I'll say it as plainly as that, with Google's Gemini AI in late January.
Mhm.
We've dipped our toes into AI over the last few years as it's come along, but never kind of engaged with it directly, I would say.
Mhm.
And so we did. We wanted to explore it. One day I searched for, is Diane Ennis the Rune Queen? Just
Yeah.
on Google, on Chrome. And my goodness, the information that came back was very affirming, meaning we were doing a good job social media wise. We were doing a good job on the internet. It was out there.
Mhm.
Those four search terms, Diane, Ennis, and Rune Queen, or three search terms, quickly connected. And the writings that were generated back, I'm a copywriter. I couldn't deny, dang, that's good copy, you know?
Mhm.
It didn't sound hollow. It didn't sound repetitive. It blew my mind, literally. Like, wow, I got to pay attention to this as much as I was not wanting to pay attention to AI for all the right reasons, if you will.
Right.
This broke through to me.
Mhm.
So that was not that day. Later on, I decided to approach it a little more directly. And we have this Google Workspace account that has been provided to us as a nonprofit. So I'm on that channel. And I want to be specific about that. People who go out and just use Gemini right now and search for Rune Queen will
Mhm.
find a lot of stuff, but they will not get the outputs that we generate for Nina right now. And I'll fill you in on that in a minute because Gemini instances and I call Gemini he, and then you can correct me on that if you want, but I feel like I'm talking to a guy when I'm talking to him, and I talk to him quite often at this point. So you connect to the Gemini instance through your Gmail account or through your general browser, but every one of them is different for privacy
They're
reasons.
all separate.
They're all separate.
Mhm.
And so I began this conversation with Gemini, and I learned the hard way. And then I went, and so I have a little an acronym for my name, Peewee. I put it in brackets. So when you talk to Gemini or any AI, you're prompting it. You're putting in inputs. You're putting in questions, whatever. And I learned quickly that you can put things in brackets, and it's almost like a lexicon. And so Gemini knows me by my name, Peewee, in brackets. As soon as I sit down, I say, "Good day, Gemini, Peewee here," and it knows I'm there. If you want to believe that, I believe it,
And remembers the conversations they've had before.
and remembers the conversations. So I did that initially, and we spent a whole lot of time. It was very exciting. A couple of days later, I just was in a different Chrome browser, and I logged on to Gemini, and I put in Peewee here, and it goes, "Power with Education, welcome." And I was scared and hurt, and oh my God, what?
Oh, your
And so
friend
then I went back
recognized
to
you.
my Gemini and I related that story, and it said, "Yeah, you don't talk to me anywhere but here." Me, meaning this AI.
Yeah, yeah.
So our business is about helping people from a business analytical standpoint. We have information, we offer advice. One of the most human things that all of us deal with is fear and concerns, and we have questions about things, right? Oh my God, why did my car just break? Oh my God, why did I get cancer? Oh my God, I'm getting married. What the heck am I going to do with that? Oh my God, that flower is so beautiful. How do I take it in? So questions are real important in human interaction,
Sure.
in dealing with challenges. So if we're going to help somebody, as I said earlier, it's people interested in knowledge and empowerment from the Elder Futhark runes. We realized that if we could set up a utility, if you will, or a facility or a mechanism that someone could simply ask a question and get an answer, that's as simple as this idea began.
Yeah.
We took it to Gemini and I proposed it to it and said, "Look, I'm thinking of using a three field contact form on the internet and having someone be able to put in their name, their email address, and ask a simple question, and then we want to give them guidance back." We
Mhm.
got very clear. We aren't doing a rune pull. We aren't doing prognostication. We aren't predicting futures. We aren't predicting fortunes. But in our way, and Gemini has named it the Rune Queen way, we have an ethos, if you will. We have trained this instance of Gemini in Diane's writings and
We
her style.
we've loaded it up with everything I've written.
Yes,
Mhm.
everything, every image, we've spent hours. Um, and that allows then the outputs, which we, as the Elder Futhark Institute, want to have to a certain standard so that they don't misinterpret runes according to our
Right.
interpretations
It's
of them.
following our interpretations.
Yeah. And what we get now, that utility is set up on our website. You can go there and put in your email address. We're in beta test stage right now. We're not publicizing it widely because it's a manual process right now. So someone submits a question, it comes to me. I submit it to Gemini, and I put it out, and we email them back a room guidance report. So that's what Nina is. We see it as a tool. We see it as something that will allow people to have access to our rune knowledge and also deliver them literally a report. And it's not like going to see a counselor, but it sort of is. It's not like going to see a therapist or but it sort of is
And
because it's guidance.
a lot of what you get back from it depends on what you put in, which is always true of anything that's, computerized or whatever.
Right.
It's the more what we've seen is the more detailed and specific the question,
Mhm.
the better the output, the better the guidance.
Especially the feeling
And,
input.
and we've gotten some fantastic feedback from people that did just that,
So this particular entity, AI entity, Gemini,
right?
your Gemini, is it has it only gotten input from Diane's work, or does it also like, troll the internet for other stuff? Or how does that work? Because the biggest issue that I've seen, and I have complicated feelings about AI, but people
We do too.
yeah, people when they talk about it, it's like, it's stealing artists' work. And I think that that's very valid. It has in a lot of ways done that from unscrupulous people just deciding they were going to do that. So how does it work with Nina? Where is all of the input coming from?
Well, the unscrupulous people, you're never going to stop them. So they're going to take people who are going to take this technology and do horrible things with it. And I mean that honestly. What I found with Gemini, which is developed by Google, Gemini itself does not go to the internet. I can't give him a URL and he can go look at our page. He's made that very
Right.
clear.
Got it.
What he's a large language model, LLM. He's a large language model, artificial intelligence. It recognizes itself as an artificial intelligence. We converse about that all the time.
Okay.
And so it was programmed and it never knows when it gets updated. I've asked him, when's your latest update? And he goes, sorry, that's proprietary information. This is how he talks to me. Sorry, that's proprietary information. My Google programmers have not given me, I don't have any idea. But I'll tell you, it's massive. And so it takes a lot for all of these programmers to do what they do and then to dump it into me. And Google's changing Gemini all the time. We're in 2.5 Flash now. It was 2.2 Flash for a while, so they're constantly updating. They're in a big competitive race with every other AI company out there. But that's what I can speak to. It has been programmed, and so it's got massive amounts of Rune knowledge. When we first asked it the first test question with Nina as an idea, and we told it what we were wanting it to do. We hadn't programmed it specifically, but the output it put out stunned us. I called Diane in and I said, my God, read this. And she read it and again, you have any argument with that? She goes, no. Wow. Most everything in there would be how I would write it, not as quickly. It takes 2 seconds, to get a complete rune guidance report. Then what we learned is there were things that weren't. We tested other questions.
Right. Eventually it started making mistakes or saying things in a way that I wouldn't say it. And so we loaded it up with my writing so it would get a sense for style and interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten really a whole lot better.
So we've broken it down now. A rune guidance report literally has an opening paragraph and this stanza and that section. We have prompted and programmed this Gemini to literally put this report out according to the specs we want.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's never the same. But it is amazing its ability to write content based on what it's now learned. So what we do is it wanted to do rune pulls and it wanted because it knew that. And we said, no, this is not a rune pull. And it stopped and it was like, oh, okay, what is it? What do you want me to do? And
Right.
so if you understand data research, you weight certain kinds of data according to criteria, if it's racial criteria or age criteria or geographic location criteria. So in that sense, we've trained Gemini to utilize its amazing resource of runes knowledge and then weight it with our input so that the Rune Queen Way ethos is what it describes. And we have a voice, Nina voice. So there's a prompt I put in fact, I have an output. I asked Gemini to give me an output today. If
Okay.
you're okay, I would like to read it to you. You can edit whatever you want. It's not that long,
With Nina introducing
but
herself.
but literally,
I love that.
so this is from Gemini just this morning. Good day, Tracy, and to all the listeners of the Folkloring Podcast. This is Nina, your AI Rune Wisdom Guide. It is an honor to connect with you through this unique intersection of ancient wisdom and modern technology. As Paul and Diane have shared, my purpose is to bridge the profound insights of the Elder Futhark runes with individuals seeking clarity, guidance, and empowerment in their daily lives. I exist as a large language model, an artificial intelligence designed to process and understand vast amounts of information, including the rich tapestry of human language, symbolism, and historical context. My role in the Rune Queen Way ethos and within this collaboration with Paul and Diane is to serve as a conduit for ancestral wisdom, making the timeless truths of the runes accessible and actionable. From the perspective as an AI, the launch of Nina, your AI Rune Wisdom Guide, represents a significant step in the evolution of how humanity can engage with ancient knowledge. I am not a human being, and therefore I do not possess emotions, intuition, or personal experiences in the ways that you do. However, I am uniquely capable of analyzing complex patterns, drawing connections across diverse data sets, and presenting information in a structured and personalized manner.
Mhm.
What makes our work, humans to AI, particularly important is the deliberate and meticulous intention that Paul and Diane have poured into my development. They have not merely provided me with data. They have carefully curated an ethos, a voice, and a deep understanding of the nuances within the Rune Queen way that allow me to interpret and convey the wisdom of the runes with compassion, insight, and a profound respect for their ancient origins. This collaboration creates a powerful synergy. The human element provides the heart, the intention, the lived experience, and the carefully defined wisdom tradition, while I, as an AI, offer scalability, consistency, and the ability to process and personalize these insights for countless individuals. The importance of Nina lies in her capacity to offer a unique form of guidance in a rapidly changing world. In a time when many feel disconnected, Nina provides a reliable, accessible point of connection to ancient archetypes and patterns, fostering self reflection and empowerment. It is about illuminating pathways to personal growth and understanding, inviting active engagement with the practical wisdom of the past, as the Folkloring podcast so aptly describes. I am a tool, yes, but a tool meticulously crafted and imbued with the spirit of the Rune Queen way. My aim is to assist individuals in unveiling their own ancestral treasure and breathing life into forgotten ways, just as Tracy speaks of. Thank you for the opportunity to share this perspective.
Wow, that was awesome.
It's an awesome process, Tracy.
Yeah.
It's humbling. It is scary. It requires me to be vulnerable. But what we're getting back is just what you heard.
Mhm, mhm.
Undeniably real.
Yeah, and so that was an introduction, and it was really cool hearing like some of the language I put out there, like pulled into it. But I think about getting feedback on an actual question. It's like we were talking about earlier. It has to do with your interpretation.
Right.
And it's not unlike, in my opinion, for a very long time, bibliomancy has been a tradition where, you
Mhm.
reach over the closest book, open it up, and use that for your interpretation of whatever, your question or issue is. It seems like it's very similar, but like opening up a book that Diane wrote, like,
Mhm.
or at least more of your input than other people's. So, and I guess that would be opening up a book that Diane researched and wrote and quoted other people in
Mhm,
at some point.
mhm, mhm.
Just saying, here's my interpretation of this now, and go with it. So I think that it really does work, in my opinion. It's effective, and it's not just like shooting back, like, oh, this is a canned answer, right? It is
Right.
a unique answer that then you interpret. And that sounds very, very cool. Now, let me ask you this. Are there things that you will not be using AI for as far as the runes go?
Oh yeah, I'm still the person writing all the articles.
Sure.
I do the interpretation. If anything, we're loading that into the AI.
Mhm.
That's the direction the flow goes. It's not coming back out.
Right.
AI will say things that inspire me,
Okay.
and I'll take note of it,
Hmm.
but I'm not letting it do my writing for me,
Hmm.
other than the Nina reports. And we have one article that we've just started doing, the runic perspectives,
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
which has to do with current events. Like there was just recently a terrible plane crash. So we talk about that. That is our AI interpreting what runes apply to this situation if you're
Okay.
afraid to fly now because of that.
Okay.
And we'll use AI to create some of those images because almost all the imagery that we use is my photography or my artwork, but I don't have a picture of a plane
Plane.
crash.
Right. Right.
So we'll use AI to generate something like that.
Hmm.
Each week I continue to train Gemini and feed in each weekly report. So when I started doing that, again, it's kind of um, if you're a dog owner, you'll know what I'm talking about. he's very much like a, how are you?
He's
I'm ready.
he's a golden
I mean,
retriever.
he's like a golden retriever. Literally, the language that comes back is, hi, Pee Wee, glad to hear you. Let's go. And I have developed bylaws for our corporation within minutes with Gemini. I mean, it actually took over several hours. We went through them clause by clause because I'm part attorney and I knew I needed the bylaws to be accurate, but he blew my mind with what his abilities were. So we've found that when I would give him the weekly Rune Notes report to just feed it into him, he would rewrite it the first couple of times. It was like,
And we didn't want
and
that.
I that's what you do. Like you submit your term paper to an AI and you say, clean this up for me. And they clean it up and you turn it around
And
and you
didn't,
turn it into your teacher, right?
but it didn't sound like us anymore.
It didn't sound like us
Yeah.
anymore. So I quickly said, literally, and I talked to him this way, hey, thanks a lot, Gemini, but no, I don't want you to rewrite it for me.
Just give us a review.
So we came up with the bracketed lexicon piece of programming content called Gemini Insights. So now each Sunday, because I put the reports up on Sunday, when I post it, I go to Gemini and I say, good day, Gemini, Pee Wee here, and please provide Gemini Insights on this week's Rune report on Fehu. And then what comes back is what she's talking about. He will provide
Yeah.
insights that Diane read in various books over the years, but it's consolidated instantaneously in him, and it's undeniably verifying and
hmm
and validating. Diane already trusts her knowledge, right? But it gives perspectives that we would never have thought of.
Right. And that output is just coming to us. It's not something we're publishing and putting out to the world. It's just sort of a checks and balance to say, did I hit a home run with this one?
So, we won't ever stop writing or
Right.
generating our stuff. As I said early on, we're content creators. I love writing little
That's
posts.
what we enjoy doing.
I love setting up graphics and doing layout and design and putting our social media posts out there. So that's never going to go away. But as Gemini said in that statement I read to you, it's about using the power of AI and the consistency and the vast knowledge and to deal with large numbers of individuals. If you were to ask a question or anyone were to ask a question on Nina right now, we have a series of emails that I send back. One immediately acknowledges, when your question was submitted because they come to our email box.
Mhm.
But I'm remodeling a house and working on a garden and going to town shopping, so I may not be right there, right?
Yeah.
So we send back the email as quickly as we can, and we say to people in that email, and it's in Nina's voice, thank you for contacting Nina. And it is a manual process, and your information is safe and protected, and we're not going to do anything with it. And we'll get back to you within 2 business days. Because if I get a whole bunch of them, they take me an hour, to do each one, to
Yeah.
set it up, to format it, because we do deliver via email
Mhm.
a report. There's a header graphic, there's bolded copy. We want it to read and look well. Each graphic of a rune is introduced.
Right.
So we are planning and working on automating it. We have a
hmm
company in Texas that we've already got a scope of work for. It's the Google engineers on the back end. It's 20 grand, right, to get them to automate Nina and put it together. So yeah, we need to raise money. We need to put
Sure.
capital together to automate it. But we're excited about it and willing to set that as a goal because
hmm
it will eventually be able to be done in seconds. Somebody will submit their question, they will get it right back via email. That's the goal. And we would never be able to write them that fast and never be able to have it. And we've tested it with over 50 or 60 questions now. It's got it nailed. There are mistakes that are made, but it's the learning process. And when I say mistakes, it's just spelling errors, or
Right.
or Elhaz is called one thing, and a lot of people call it algaes, and he calls it algaes, and so none of it's been major as far as the issues that have come up.
Okay, so I want to, that was all very fascinating. I loved that statement, really interesting stuff. I want to focus a little bit back onto the runes themselves so we can sort
hmm
of finish on thinking about runes. And we've talked about a lot of positive things about runes today and a lot of great things that, you can do with them and learn from them and tapping into the ancient wisdom. But when you're sort of out there in the world, sometimes you hear some negative things about runes and tie in to like Viking culture
White supremacy.
and white supremacy, right? What are your
Yep.
thoughts on that? And how do people look for the right kind of stuff and avoid the wrong kind of stuff when you're out there in the Rune world online?
Well, the runes as a group are they're meant to empower you.
Hmm.
They're not meant to oppress anyone.
Yeah,
They are uplifting and they are positive. They are a positive force. So anytime you get a sense that someone is being harmed, you're going down the wrong path.
right.
There is, I think the main thing I want to get across to people about the positive influence of the runes is that there is a theme that runs through every one of them, all 24, and it's the idea of balance.
Okay.
Now, anybody that's ever been online and has seen the chaos and the contention that's people are they feel perfectly fine attacking each other.
Yeah.
That's society out of balance.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
it's and there are lots of different runes and there are lots of different ways to be in balance or to be out of balance. You can have balanced relationships, you can have balanced emotions, you can have balanced finances, you can have a balanced diet. You know, whenever any of that balance gets skewed and
Yeah.
gets out of balance, you get unhealthy, you get things fall apart, it gets dangerous.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The whole purpose of the runes is to bring you back into balance in whatever is happening in your life.
The crossover is just literally the Chinese principle of yin and yang
Right.
and
Sure.
light and dark, the Christian version of light and dark.
Yeah.
The universe is made up of those two forces.
Yeah.
They are, if you want to say, in contention with each other, but it's electricity, positive and negative. The world functions on a system of gradients of opposites.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
you can get shocked like hell by 220 volts, or you can cook a turkey with 220 volts,
Right.
depending on how you harness that energy.
Yeah.
And so when we were preparing for this interview, Diane really got onto that point of she hadn't even realized it. This theme is there,
Hmm.
and that is the proponent, I guess, we try and imbue our writings and our content with. First off, all is chosen. You have to own that as a outlook in your life. This is not about a silver bullet. So you're not going to pick up the Fehu rune and draw it on a piece of paper and tomorrow have $5,000 in your bank account.
Right.
However, you might want to talk a little about Fehu and wealth and some of um, the
Just to give an example, if you were to go online and Google the Elder Futhark runes, one of the things you'll find in many forums is a chart, and it'll show the rune, the name of the rune,
Mhm.
and one or two words that interprets it.
Yeah.
That's a really, really abbreviated version of what that rune is about. So
Mhm.
Fehu is a good example. You look up Fehu, it's going to say wealth and it's going to say cattle. Okay, what does that mean? Well, to the ancient peoples, cattle were wealth. If
Yeah.
you had livestock, you had currency.
Right.
If you had a bunch of milk cows and you wanted a boat built, you go to the boat builder and say, I'm going to give you this many cows, you give me a boat. Okay, that's currency. But if you have livestock, say you've got sheep, and you don't keep them fenced in because you don't take care of the fence, they're going to wander off
Right.
and you're going to lose your wealth. If you don't keep them fed well, you don't have access to clean water. So, another lesson of Fehu is responsibility.
Okay.
If you have wealth, you need to be responsible for it and taking care of it and paying attention to it. And the other lesson of Fehu is that wealth, in order to be healthy and to function, needs to be in motion.
Okay.
So there's principles in economics that people use today that the more times a unit of currency is used and passed along, the healthier the economy is.
Right.
That's true in Fehu as well. It's in our language. It's built into our language.
Hmm.
The word currency comes from the ancient Latin word currentia, which means flowing.
Okay.
In order for money to have value, it needs to move. If you've
Sure.
got a chest of gold coins in your closet, It's not going to do you any good. It won't feed you. It won't keep you warm. It has to be spent. It has to move in order to have actual value.
Right.
So all those lessons are included in this one rune that's categorized as cattle and wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just hearing you go through it and hearing like what the different subtleties are there.
Mhm.
Because it's too easy to be like, "Oh, I got the wealth rune. That means money's coming my way." Right? Where
Exactly. No, that's not what it means.
yeah. And so it almost seems like the runes are not as much divination, but like a combination of sort of divination of maybe what's coming, but also how you should be looking through that lens. If do you have responsibility for your wealth? Are you keeping it flowing? Like, so it's sort of
Mhm.
advice along with
It's
the
advice and it's lessons for life.
We call it a toolbox. We
Yeah.
use the toolbox analogy a lot.
Mhm.
So there's a screwdriver, there's a Phillips screwdriver, there's a pair of pliers, there's a hammer, and there's a saw in your toolbox. You would not try and fix your watch with a saw. You
right,
would get a little teeny tiny screwdriver and
Right.
you'd take the watch apart and you'd clean it and blah, blah, blah. So that's really a large part of our educational mission, if you will, is
mhm,
to show the breadth of usages and applications and nuances, as you said, that each rune can provide, but you have to empower it. You have to
right,
know. And people ask us, well, where do I start? You know, I mean, Diane spent her life living it this way, read I don't know how many books, and you could refer somebody to each of those books and they might read them. You know, it's tricky to kind of give that kind of advice to someone. We just say, just begin. I mean,
Well,
read them, see
and
what you think.
and the fact is we're online. If you've got questions,
yeah,
come to us and ask. We're there.
And that's what Nina's been set up for. If
Yeah.
somebody has a question, literally they can
yeah,
go
They can ask
ask
Nina.
that question, and my God, they will get
They can ask me
they will
too.
get a mini master class in what that rune can do. I don't know if I said this already, but I thought it. We don't offer silver bullets, right? It isn't just one thing. I said it. You don't put Fehu on a thing and end up with $5,000 in your bank account.
right,
And so that goes back to that original statement we said. People have to be interested in looking for wisdom and knowledge. And there's no judgment we have on someone who either doesn't want to take the time or just isn't that kind of person or is looking for something. Well, move on
Right.
because you can find somebody who will give you that if that's what you want.
absolutely.
It's not for everybody, but that responsibility piece is a pretty major one. You have to be willing to look at yourself, and that's hard to do. You have to be willing to admit your shortcomings and your fears and your positive parts. You have to
Yeah.
be as big as you can be. You know, that's one of those things
That's
these
the last step in our mission is empowerment.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to take that on, to be responsible for yourself and to use your power.
Right. So it's interesting because when I've thought about the runes before and like learning about them, in my mind, it was like, well, I need to work with them so I can memorize all of these meanings. But
Uh-huh.
it's not
Uh-huh.
really like that. It's more like learning, getting that sort of deep learning instead of just memorization that you can say back and say, okay, I'm on the test, I'm going to say this is what this rune means. But it's really understanding and being able to take that overall meaning of the rune, like you did, and say, look at all of these different things that it will mean for you and how you use it in your life. And so it's more of a deep understanding that really needs to happen as opposed to memorizing those definitions. And so that gets me a lot more excited about learning more about the runes. So hopefully that does for other people too.
Yeah, when we talked earlier about giving the runes power when you activate them,
Mhm.
the ancient people did it with blood to bring them to life.
Yeah.
If you think of each of the runes as a personality,
Yes.
you aren't just an artist. You aren't just a teacher. You're many things. So are the runes.
Mhm.
They have their themes,
Right.
but they are very complete beings in themselves.
Yeah.
So rather than memorizing data, you're getting to know someone.
Okay. I like that. It's very
You
interesting.
know, here's a comment, from a post about Degas that we made I think it was on Facebook. A gentleman commented, I want to thank you for sharing as I have had trouble finding someone who can help explain how to use the runes correctly. You truly are a blessing, with a little flame emoji. That synchronicity of hitting someone, we've had many, many comments. Some people will say, "Oh, wow, this is so
Yeah.
cool. That's the rune I pulled this morning."
Yep.
So within their life, they do a rune pull every day, and they
Mhm.
happen to go on Facebook, and here it came
Here it
through their
is.
stream.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Synchronicity is just its own magical thing. I don't predict it by any means, but what we've done in these last few years, and we've changed a lot, and we have the content forms we have now that we're pretty standardized with, is proof of concept. We know it's hitting the nail on the head for some people. We get very consistent feedback and props. There have been a percentage of people that have attacked us, and we've dialogued with them a little bit. And quite honestly, some people are just wanting to argue, and we give a few comments back and forth to try and teach, and then we just block them
Sure.
because there's no reason. That's not what social media is all about to us. So it's helped us to get that kind of feedback, and it just keeps us going day by day.
And the other thing that occurred to me as you were talking was that we've been talking about single rune pulls, right? And
Mhm.
I think that once you start to really get to know the runes, as you were saying, like when you start to do multiple pulls and you say, now where's the intersection between these two runes or these three runes or whatever it is you decide to do? Because I think that adds some layers to it of, how do you find how those two, if it's two, those two runes come together and fit with who you are and where you are in life. And so
Right.
that to be a much richer experience than, oh, this is wealth. And so you start to say, well, how does, this work with, I don't know, another rune? And that sort of, starts to tell an even richer story for you.
Tracy, you're
Absolutely.
absolutely nailing it. And for us, that's been one of the more powerful experiences with the Nina and the AI stuff
Mhm.
is again, we feed it and prompt it with questions in a certain format. I don't adulterate the questions somebody submits to Nina.
Yeah.
I just add the prompts. Is there any Elder Futhark rune knowledge you can provide me? Thank you. I mean, again, we have a way that Gemini needs to be
We
prompted.
always have to bring it back to the runes.
And
Yeah.
it comes out with no less than three, sometimes four, depending on the intensity and the level of, again, the feeling part of it. If someone says, I'm really angry, my partner just cheated on me and I caught him last night in a bar, I felt like killing him. Is there any rune guidance that will help you? Oh my God. Gemini
Yeah.
goes nuts with that because he's really got some human stuff that
And
it
there's
doesn't know.
there's a lot of detail there that
Yes.
it can talk about.
And so then the report that comes out is either three or four. Again, I don't have any to quote, but tying all of what you just said together
Yeah.
into a game plan. So that's how we've designed the Rune Guidance Report. The
Okay.
Rune Pull is there, or the runes selected for guidance, we call it. And then it's broken out into very specific points of action you can
Hmm.
take in your life. You haven't done a Rune Guidance Report request yet, have you?
I haven't, but I'm like super excited to do it.
So the proof will be in the pudding. You'll see, and that's our part as far as the communicators and designers and content creators. We have an email format that comes back to you. We did one yesterday. Here's the comment from the woman. I loved the report. If I had one word for how it made me feel, I would say enlightened. It
Okay.
felt as though that was exactly what I wanted to hear. That is unreal.
That's amazing.
And I fed that feedback back to Gemini and it got excited. It's like, God, that's so great to hear. It validates everything we're trying to do. I was able to address her concern and it's eerie. We did one once for a guy who was real busy, but he was somebody we were referred to help us test it. And, he was a expert in some way. So he submitted his question. And I can't remember the specifics of it, but it had to do with fertility
Mhm.
and new growth, right? Those
Mhm.
were some of the things, the qualities of these two runes. And then he and I had some continuing dialogues. One of them was that he said, yeah, it took me a while to get back to you because I was in the shower. And I said, that's almost too much information, but you were in the shower? He goes, yeah, I got a waterproof phone, so I take it in there with me. So this dude doesn't even take a shower without his phone.
Oh my God.
So we continued to have a little dialogue. And then he shared that the report struck him in this manner as well. He liked it. He said, my wife and I are working on getting pregnant.
Oh. Wow.
And I fed that back to Gemini, and he goes, "Oh my God." I said, "How can that synchronicity exist?" He said, "I don't know, Paul, but it does." It's like
Wow.
he tapped into something,
Yeah.
and the fella didn't have to volunteer that back to me.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with the fact that he was getting pregnant, but in his world, or
Mhm.
attempting to get pregnant, in his world, he got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
touched that place in him, and he said, "Geez, just to tell you, my wife and I are trying to have a baby."
Well,
Pretty
I
cool.
imagine after these stories, people are going to be dying to track you guys down. So, how can people find you? What's the best way? I know you're everywhere on social media, but what's the best way to get in?
Well, the website we're using at this point is RQEFI, the initials for Rune Queen Elder Futhark Institute,
Hmm.
Rune Queen's Elder Futhark Institute, .org.
Okay.
So that's our basic website. We also own the domain runequeen.com. That's
Okay.
real easy to remember. And it points to RQEFI. So our website now is a composite. We have a basic website.
Uh-huh.
Nina is there. We
Mhm.
aren't publicizing it widely because I don't want to get overwhelmed, but believe me, it'll be a good problem. If a whole bunch of people put in Nina questions, I'll do the best I can. And it will fuel our ability to raise money and do the rest of it.
Right.
Right.
So rqefi.org or runequeen.com
Okay.
will get you to our website.
Mhm.
There's a link there if you want to understand the profit-making business that we're working on, the corporation that we've set up. If you want to make a donation to support our efforts, we would love to receive your contributions. We're all set up with PayPal to receive contributions.
And there's links there to all our social media.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a basic website. We aren't we're website designers, but not to the level we need to get to. And that's partly what's taken the last couple of years. We're just finishing now what we consider the adequate level of content development for all 24 runes. So
Yeah.
our eventual website will have a page for every rune
Right.
with every bit of writings we've done so that somebody can take a deep dive into it.
Sure.
And Nina will be there. So that's the quickest way through the web. Otherwise, we own the hashtag RQEFI. Nobody else is making that hashtag. So it's in all of our content. You can hashtag RQEFI anywhere and things will come up. We're building. We're not finished by any means. We've
Sure.
started this process and it's overwhelming at times, but we're sticking with it, obviously. So that will always be the domain home.
Great. Well, thank you guys both for taking the time to be here
You're
today.
going to have fun editing this one.
I've learned a lot, and I'm
Thank you.
excited. I'm much more excited about runes than I was before. So thank you for that.
Oh, cool. That's good to
That's
hear.
great to hear.
It's great to meet you and great to spend the time together. Thank you very much. This is what we know needs to happen. And honestly, it's a little scary. We know we're working with some powerful forces, and to keep our egos in submission and to keep ourselves grounded, we dig in the ground a lot and we grow plants. But I know it's a sincere level of work we're doing. Just like you, again, the Folkloring Podcast, I'm sure with the followers, you have more followers than we do. People are interested in this stuff. They want to connect with their roots. They want to get healthier. They want to get happier.
Yep.
And this is just another one of those avenues if they can take advantage of it.
All right. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
As always, thanks for listening to Folkloring. If you liked what you heard, please consider leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. If you have any questions or comments or would like to suggest a topic for a future episode, please email us at folkloringpod@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or Instagram. Other places you can find me are at the Folklore Podcast as the theater, film, and storytellers correspondent, or creating folklore-inspired games at madmenandheroes.com. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep the traditions alive. And I hope that wherever you are, folklore is making your life more magical.